Welcome to the Crash Chords podcast. I got nothing.
Wow.
Way to give up.
Yeah.
Not even
Quitter,
trying.
Matt.
Not even trying.
I've never heard of anyone who quit within the span.
Anyone
of
who's joining
2
us,
seconds.
who is also listening to this album, is going to want to quit too. Trust me.
Wait, so we inspire quitters? We're not only quitter ourselves, we inspire quitting. That's our mission statement. That's what I need to write on our front page.
Quitters never win.
But they can prosper.
No, they don't prosper either.
That's almost profound. Quitters never win.
That's why I still smoke.
Okay.
Don't know. Anyway, so I went to Pennsylvania yesterday.
That's fun.
It was actually kind of neat, because once it got dark, large field, tons of fireflies. There's like tiny little fireworks going off.
It was
neat.
It was kind of neat.
They were performing
It
for
was
you.
kind of neat. Hey, Matt, push up your glasses and say that again.
I'm good.
Okay.
They're not falling off my face, so I don't have to push them out.
I'm going to have.
What?
I feel very condescending today.
Apparently.
Today?
Today.
As of when you're listening to this on Wednesday, I am performing with Sarah of the Wasties at the Way Station in my first ever on-stage singing performance. Should be interesting. I'm not terrified at all.
And
or
what are you
freaking out.
performing?
We're singing The Rainbow Connection as a duet.
I prefer the original.
The original,
Just saying.
the original is the same,
No, it's not.
I-
Different orchestration.
but the same lyrics.
Different orchestration.
And actually, we're not playing either version.
different arrangement.
We're actually playing an acoustic guitar version. We're playing our own version of it.
You, Mr. Creative. Jeez.
That's
Actually,
not creative. That's the opposite.
Yeah, arranging.
That's.
is not.
I don't have enough
Oh, you're just
skills. I'm just going to play a guitar.
disparaging all arrangers
did you
out
say
there.
I don't have enough skills on playing guitar? Mister, I don't even know how to play guitar?
I don't claim to be a musician. I claim
I
to be
sit back in my chair and
claim to
judge
be a
the world.
jackass.
Yep.
I judge the world
Those
for what
who
it
do
is.
not know how, teach. Those who can't teach, critique. And that's where I am.
That's horrible.
Yes.
so horrible.
Thank you, Steve, for saying how horrible it was.
I need to go throw up for a second.
Anyway, I'm
and
excited.
we are
to perform. It should be
critiquing
fun.
today.
Yeah, we are. Oh,
We critique
I
every
still don't
week.
know what
so
song.
John did it again.
This
No,
time.
wait.
John brought us another terrible album by a band we respect.
Before we go there, I still don't know what song it is.
The Rainbow Connection.
I don't know that song.
What? From the Muppets?
Which song is that?
Oh my god.
I'm gonna throw up twofold now. Really?
I don't remember
I'm
that
with
song.
Steve on it. From the newest movie?
Sing a little.
Yeah, man.
You guys are asses. It's not going to sound great.
I see what you,
You
did
could just
now.
try. Yeah, yeah,
I
you
see
saw
what
that,
you
right?
did. Okay.
I kind of put him on the spot.
All right. I kind of am switching sides here. Matt?
Just a verse. Just a bar.
It's a song that opens in the original Muppet movie with Kermit playing on the swamp.
Okay.
He's playing a banjo, and the first verse is, "Why are there so many songs about rainbows, and what's on the other side?"
I don't hear Kermit.
That's.
Because I'm not Kermit.
But
Why
it's,
are there?
It's sung by a frog. I need to hear a little bit of amphibianness.
That's not going to happen in a million years.
Maybe.
Channel your inner amphibian. We were all amphibians once. It was many millennia ago.
I am terrible at impressions. I will soon sing that like Kermit the minute you start singing it as Jimmy Stewart.
That's
He wants a
pretty
big
easy.
one. He wants a big one.
That's all Steve ever wants is a big one.
Hey, Jimmy Stewart! Don't insult Jimmy Stewart.
No, we're insulting you.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
okay,
you.
Okay, all right. Well, that's fine.
I would never.
Vicariously having Jimmy Stewart insult you.
He would never.
He probably would.
He's my favorite.
Oh.
No.
Oh.
No.
Oh.
I'd go throw up again now.
All right, and for a final.
So
time
this is
of-
just going to be a vomitathon.
Yeah, because we don't hear. Okay,
It's gonna be a vomitathon again for this album.
So we're reviewing John chose the newest record by the Barenaked Ladies called Grinning Streak, and there is nothing to grin about. Well,
terrible pun.
No, I see what he's doing, but,
He tried.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, they tried.
Yes.
There's not much trying. I don't know that I'd say they tried so much as did.
Yeah, right, I retract. Yeah. This is...
No, they do not.
So to say up front, this is the first record by the Barenaked Ladies... Oh, no, the second record that the Barenaked Ladies have recorded without the other lead singer, Steve Page, who also played guitar. He departed before their last record to pursue a solo career, which I can only imagine and hope is better than this. Let's get right into the first track. As far as intro tracks go, it has an odd intro that goes absolutely nowhere. It becomes background music, childish lyrics, poor introduction to a not great album.
That's got a lot to say on this.
It's also really.
I will put this out. Song is Limits.
Yeah, I should have said that.
Don't read into that.
No.
It is an intro track. In that it
introduces the
album. It does introduce the album.
It's the first track.
No. Not that it's the first track.
Okay, all right, come on. Let's dive into the meat here.
It feels like an intro track. And it's setting the bar for this album. And it really did a great job of setting it at the right level.
For the rest of the record.
Okay, I'm gonna use your little phrase here, John, and call this the epitome of phoned in.
That's not my phrase, but thank you for attributing it to me.
You've used it before. You use it a lot, so whatever. In any case, I really, really wasn't feeling it until about the halfway point.
When the piano came in.
I do say that when that piano came in, the track took an upturn.
Yay!
I was still very bored by the time that piano came in, but once it did come in, it did to some extent save this track for me. It was very creative.
It was a little refreshing, but still just... It was a poor introduction is not good because it is a great introduction to what you would expect from the rest of the record to be. But it's not a good intro in general.
Of course not. I mean, the synth is very repetitive. I mean, if you're going to use, a synth figuration, you really need to spice it up a bit. I feel like this didn't really set any kind of stage.
Don't just replace the instruments with synth, which is what they did. They could have used
what kills me most about
bass.
What kills me
used drums and actually done the same exact beat and sound as what the synth was doing.
The upright bassist is still with this band, right?
Yes. The bassist also plays upright bass. But the problem is, with this track mostly, is they took their wonderful piano player, Kevin I believe his name is, who's a great piano player. He plays a lot of great piano on previous records, and they did nothing with him this whole album except for sprinkles here and there. And that was really disappointing, because that's what added a lot of character to a lot of their previous work. Is it kind of this backbone of piano that was just kind of nice, and it was there, and it was well written.
And it flowed, and it was showcased.
And that was not really here.
It was enjoyable.
Because fundamentally, that really doesn't fit the framework of pop. Framework of pop does not put a spotlight on piano often.
Right.
Unless you're talking about a very specific brand of pop, like piano rock pop, which Ben Folds is very good at, but that's all about the piano. This is not about the piano. I think, from what I know about the Barenaked Ladies, and especially their hit singles, this is about the singer and his fast form of singing, which I wouldn't go as far to call rap-like, but at the same time, it has a verbosity to it.
But the problem is also even that's the singer who stayed behind is the one who does the faster singing. He doesn't even do much of that on this record.
There's a couple,
and that was the biggest problem. Is like in songs like 1 Week and Pinch Me and a few of those other songs, he has this kind of ebb and flow with the way he sings. That even if the lyrics aren't that complicated, it's still kind of fun and engaging. And that doesn't really happen on this record except for a few tracks.
Yeah, that seemed almost entirely dropped off.
Well, that's also because he had to pick up for Stephen Page, who did a lot of the more, I guess, melodic singing. Would be best way to describe it.
Yeah. But I mean, this. Yeah. Okay, I'll buy that because most of this track is very melodic.
Yeah.
If it's not with Stephen Page, then yeah. All right, that makes sense. That's a reasonable conclusion.
Moving on to track 2, Boomerang. All I can say about Boomerang is so. First of all, we know. By any means, I'm a sucker for the feels, as they're called. and that I love identifying with love songs, especially because I'm a sap.
You had the feels.
Boomerang is the most uninspired, boring love song I've ever heard. That's saying a lot.
I'm going to take a different route with this and call it department store music. This is what I dub this type of track. This type of music. It's very acoustic. It's very easy listening. Still got that 4-chord progression. You're really extremely formulaic.
You're pretty much going a different route to describe the same thing I am.
Yes, that would be correct.
What we said are synonymous, just described a little differently.
I think that's going to be today's theme.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say something that you guys just said, but in a completely different way. I found this to be. You ever get an assignment back in like junior high, where you're taking an English class and you got to write a story, but you don't feel like doing it? You feel like going outside and like maybe playing basketball or maybe riding your bike. So you just do it as fast as you can. So you got to do a topic and you just come up with as many very simple metaphors about the topic as humanly possible and just flush it out. Yeah, that's Boomerang. Every single line directly relates to the fact that a boomerang is thrown and comes back. And then is thrown again.
As one would to the one they love. I'm not going to really break that down anymore.
There's nothing to break down.
This is so over the top in trying to make him into the boomerang.
But just the tone of the song, the formula and the style in which it's presented, it's very first love in high school kind of music to me, and it strikes me as the type of music that one would like at that age. Which is why it's interesting you threw the junior high in there, because maybe even that early. I'm not saying that this couldn't be found on adult contempo, but in fact, adult contempo I always found kind of interesting is not very mature music in and of itself. At least I don't find it to be.
But
it's easy listening, and that's really as far as I can go.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of the. This is an album that, aside from 2 or 3 tracks, and we're not even halfway done with the record.
We're only 2 in.
Take your time.
Calm down.
But I'm just saying
get there.
I'm just saying that it's this album is almost an easy listening passive album. Almost, it's there. It's getting there.
You don't want to listen to it actively.
Because this is okay. I want to go on record.
If you listen to it actively, you'd really wish you had done something productive in the last 45 minutes.
I'm going to go out there and say this might be the first record we ever listened to where on the second listen, the follow-up listen, I liked it less. That doesn't happen often.
That's not. This is not the first record for me. That's happened to me on several.
I'm saying
other
for
records.
me.
Okay, fair enough.
For me specifically, this, to my recent memory at least, this is the first time I've listened to it a second time and liked it less.
For me, and this is one of the reasons we listen to albums in advance, is because things always change on how they grow on you or grow off you, and I'm willing to say this is that case. This is the opposite of what I said about Godsticks. You're not going to find any more on a listen. In fact, you're probably going to find less.
Like, the songs that I really liked held up on the second listen, but everything else fell apart. Moving on to the next track.
Falling apart, okay. Off His Head. This was a flatlined beat that never took off. It was just so basic and repetitive. Coupled with... It was a happy beat.
Boring.
It was a happy flat... It was do-do-do-do-do, kind of a,
This is song... The lyrics were so dark for this song, and the beat just didn't fit. And
someone's about to get spanked by their dad in a very unhappy way, because there's the whole genre of Here's Your Daddy. And
genre?
coupled with a happy little Steamboat Willie style beat. It was so off-putting.
My biggest problem with this is, typically in a song along these lines, if it's really dark with a happy beat, it's tongue-in-cheek, and it's something along the lines of Jonathan Colton or MC Frontalot.
You go ironic.
Right, where it becomes comedy. This was not comedy. It was so sincere and not fitting.
There was something interesting about this track in that it felt... I think part of the reason you saw it as sort of upbeat, and the fact that it doesn't fit the lyrics is obvious. I believe they were borrowing more from their live experience here. their experience on stage. It felt very present within this track. It didn't feel like it was, tailored in a studio or anything. It felt like there was some energy here. And obviously that does not fit with the lyrics, but I did see a little bit more energy here than I did see in Boomerang. Boomerang is personal, Boomerang is, one person to another. This track was a bit more general, and that doesn't fit the theme at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, moving on. Gonna Walk.
Okay, this is the song that when we were listening to it...
Wait, John. Did you know it's about walking?
Yes, I did. I was so...
Wait, John. And it's still about walking.
I'm going to crack this mug over your head. I was more interested in the fact that my coffee tasted different because I put sweet and low instead of sugar than I was with the song.
Just staring at the mug. Going,
I was staring at the mug going, huh.
How about
that? That was more entertaining.
This is such a repetitive...
I'm going to come up with a great metaphor for being bored.
All right, I don't want to be belligerent here against... I don't consider any of this music... It's less my taste than yours. I want to put that out there.
We know that,
but I don't consider... I don't consider it bad per se.
Oh, well, no.
It's just... We had a discussion last week about safety. And this is the epitome of
this whole album, you could pluck any song off this album and it could be a single on Top 40 radio.
Almost.
Just about any song.
In fact, I'd say almost except one.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
I don't know, it's just... I'm coming from a place, and I think this is shades of the Green Day reviews and some other stuff, where I have an expectation, and I'm so crushed because it didn't meet my expectation at all. And I wasn't expecting a 5-star album from Barenaked Ladies.
I'm gonna pose this. You were younger when you listened to this their fresh work, and I believe I don't see that much of a difference between this and the earlier work. If you do, that's fine, but I don't personally see. I gave a listen to their earlier work, and I just believe that it's a little bit dated. This is not the kind of music that has evolved with this decade.
Yes,
this decade,
but also. Their older work, the singles, are not exactly the same as the album work. And I liked a lot of their non-single album work.
Okay, that's fair.
But anyway.
I will say this. Just going back to vocals, even going back to off his head for 1 second. They were good vocals. I can just think of any other number of applications in which they could be used.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The lyrics weren't terrible for Off His Head.
They were off-putting.
They were just
coupled with.
They just were not great for that song. I feel like a different.
I'm not even talking about lyrics. I'm just talking about vocals here. Just talking about the vocal style, the melody.
He had better range when he was younger. There is
a decidedly noticeable difference between his singing in the past and now.
Vocals have gone downhill.
Yeah, but it feels like a choice. I don't hear anything in this album that says he couldn't do what he did earlier. I don't hear...
He chose not to, though, and I'm a little disappointed by that as well.
Yeah, well, choices...
Inflection is gone, and that was a distinct part.
Do you have anything else to say about Gonna Walk?
I have a couple more things to say about Gonna Walk. This made me realize that they're kind of... this is a bit of stretch for me. I don't want to say pop geniuses. I want to say that going several weeks back to our intelligence versus creativity debate...
Discussion. This seems like intelligence.
I believe that they know what's popular. I'm not even saying it's really popular now, but 10 years isn't that long of a time in the grand scheme of things. People remember what was popular then, and it's nostalgic.
Well, I can prove also along those lines when I was looking up on Wikipedia, not that that's the end all be all for information, but when I was reading their reception, because they always put a little blurb about how it's been received.
Yeah.
It's been received mostly positive by fans and critics.
Because I think everyone goes back, and it's just like, alright, Barenaked Ladies, still at it.
But I like nostalgia just as much as the next guy, and Eve 6 is proof of that. There was just something... You know what it is? You can be nostalgic and still do something a little different. The problem is that this is so safe... Even safer than what they've done in the past.
I agree. I mean, I'm not.
And I think that's why I like it less.
The thing about Gonna Walk here is I think they just perfected, as if it needed any perfecting, the idea of, say, a sweet message in a fun way. And I as much as I find that to be a little bit trite, I know that that's popular almost anywhere you go, which is why I call a great deal of this department store music. Yeah. You can put that on in a department store with any number of creeds come in and out of that place, and they're not going to be offended. And in fact, they're probably going to, just groove to it a little bit. this album is in that vein.
Yeah.
But it's nothing that's going to drag your attention or distract you from the... leave you standing in the aisle and distract you from shopping. You're going to do your shopping.
That's
Macy's. What's important.
This is Macy's, not Spencer's.
Talking to that, and
right.
I want to go on a slight tangent. Talking to that, I kind of want to perform an experiment in a department store where we put on music that's not department store safe, not offensive necessarily, but just stuff like, for example, imagine what would happen if you went into Sears, went to their audio section, and put on Darlings of Lumberland.
That could be fascinating, and
somewhere
down the road, I think we should do a Crash Chords poll and actually test this out.
No, I don't think we should start with Darlings.
Hidden video camera business.
I think we should hit like Raditude Weezer. Or Red Album Weezer.
Yeah, but that's...
And then the opposite side of things...
There.
The opposite side of things, we should also go all out and go with like the heavy metal or screamo style.
Yeah.
And put that on right at the doorway. So as soon as someone walks in from the outside or from the parking lot, through the double doors, that's what they hear. You have a camera on them, and you see their facial expression as they look up to the speaker.
Let's table this, and we'll get into this maybe a little more after the album, because I think...
Okay, table.
Yeah, I want to table this. Okay.
It'll be the fastest way to get kicked out of JCPenney.
Anyway, moving on to the next song.
Odds are.
So, this is the song, one of the songs I enjoyed, one of the two songs I enjoyed most on this record. Odds are it was kind of pretty straightforward pop, kind of had a fun beat.
If I was going to say
the lyrics
anything,
were kind of clever. It was formulaic pop music, more or less.
If I was going to say anything was reminiscent of their earlier work, it would be this.
Because the lyrics
had more thought put into them. I want to say
they weren't more complicated, but they were at least a little more clever than the other stuff on the record.
Honestly, by this point, I want to take away the source that they're using, and just actually teach them English, because it's still very unimaginative for what I remember. It's better. I mean, odds are... The whole concept of this song is, well, odds of getting hit by lightning aren't actually as good as falling in love. Odds of getting eaten by a great white shark or hit by a meteorite aren't as good as falling into love. That can go somewhere.
You're looking in theme work.
It didn't, but it could have gone somewhere.
Theme work, that's all well and good. I still don't see as much of a disparity between this and the other tracks in terms of tone or creativity or anything else. I guess it does have the fun air that a former makes it sound like they were a band, stopped being a band, became a band again. But what you remember from early Barenaked Ladies was, chances are someone's going to fall in love by the end of this song. It's such a cheap shot, almost. Someone out there is gonna be like, "Aw, that's sweet. That's sweet. He said that to me." I'm not dissing it at all. It is a sweet idea. It's a sweet message. It's just a little bit cheap.
Yeah, well, so is... I mean, that's kind of the MO for pop music.
Okay.
On the whole now.
I'm
being a little cheap.
Wait, we got Steve defending the album. This is amazing.
I'm not defending anything.
You're trying.
You're trying to find a silver lining.
Well, you guys are sitting back with an air of
superiority,
unprofessionality at this point. There's stuff to talk about.
There are things to talk
details
about.
Here.
I don't have anything positive to add, so I'm trying to gloss over it quickly.
Okay, fair enough. I just,
I don't
even see how you would interpreted that as a defense necessarily.
Wait, what?
That quote. I'm not a fan of that quote necessarily. Chances are someone's going to fall in love at the end of the... I mean, I did say it was sweet.
Yeah.
But I think it's a cheap shot.
It's a cheap shot, but you know what? It hasn't been done before. It is a little bit unique in its snowflake shape. And it's...
I can't point to references to the contrary, but I feel like it has been done before.
Oh,
I feel like there's been other tracks out there that have broken the fourth wall and reached out to the love of the listener.
If we go into the depth of what music has done, yes, someone has done this before. But that would be true for anything we review from now to the end of time.
True.
Unless we found something that just totally blows our ears off the side of our heads. Which would make
witty.
Us difficult. It had a little more wit to it. That is what I was come to expect with Barenaked Ladies. It also... It had that tongue-in-cheek element that I do enjoy from them. It's something that they've built into the lyrics for a very long time.
Yeah.
I'm going to go hide under there. I just made you say
underwear.
That's the pinnacle of breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, they do that a lot, actually, in their songs. They did it in 1 week as well.
Yeah. That's what I was quoting.
No, you were quoting Pinch Me.
No.
Yes, that's from Pinch Me.
Yes. Damn.
You're right. Thanks.
Okay, you get a point.
Thanks.
I think this is about time to move on to Keeping It Real, because this is, without question, the most strikingly different track on the album. It's a straight up rock song, and it's kind of a southern rock, even
country.
With
it's country rock.
Country, yeah. It has a western air to it.
Primarily located in the guitar's attitude, the guitar's riffing.
Oh yeah, and especially if you're listening to this, on headphones and everything, it's coming right out of it's very partitioned. The guitar is right there in your left ear, and it cuts right through you. It's in the good way.
The style of singing is also kind of very southern rock, western, if you will.
Well, sure. I guess it is a little bit repetitive, the song, because it does go through just from verse to verse, but I liked the framework, so I accepted that repetition in this case.
So this song, it's funny, because for me, this record, like, the previous song and this song are the two songs I like most, and they're kind of right in the middle of the record, which is really disappointing.
Yeah.
But this one was just, I mean, there's not a ton to say about it other than it was definitely different for Barenaked Ladies. It wasn't a typical Barenaked Ladies style song. However, it was a kind of nice southern rock, country rock track that was enjoyable to listen to.
I really enjoyed the chorus.
Oh, the chorus was phenomenal.
This is the one thing I actually wrote down when it came to lyrical work. The wood's all soaking so the fire won't burn. Now I'd keep talking, but you never learn. The cut's too deep, and so the wound won't heal. You won't keep nothing. You don't keep nothing by keeping it real. It was, and especially with his attitude.
The attitude with it, they were harmonizing in the second iteration of that chorus, and I thought that was absolutely beautiful. It really did seem to move this track along. So I'm not being shy about that. I am defending this track strongly.
Yeah. And I will agree with you.
I think we're all in agreement.
This is a big redeeming quality.
Yes. In many ways, this is one of the only redeeming qualities in this album.
Mm-hmm.
It's up there, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. Like, just from my experience with this, it's night and day. It really is.
Oh, yeah.
Not just from creativity's sake, but it showed that they could do something else. That's what, like, and it didn't seem cliched. It didn't seem like the same kind of the way we interpreted a lot of the tracks on the Maroon 5 album, Overexposed. We didn't really appreciate him moving into these other areas, just kind of borrowing from this genre here, borrowing from that genre here. It all felt kind of tacky in the process.
This
did not feel tacky.
He owned the genre. He may not be the best of this, but he owned it.
I'd almost be more interested in seeing them go in this direction in the future.
It might be cool to get Barenaked Ladies doing a country rock album.
It seems like it would be more inspired than anything else they've done on the record. For sure.
It's clear based on this track they can do it, so if it had all been in this would have been such a higher rating.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have cared. Oh, so what? They're departing from their 90s. Again, I've made it clear that I'm not really a fan of this, of it's not my taste. Even their previous work was not my taste, but this is. So, lucky.
Moving on to track 7. Give It Back to You. This is one of those songs that immediately you get a sense of, aw, it's a sweet song. But it's kind of empty, and it's still kind of just like...
It was... The premise was so sweet I got a cavity. It...
But it still wasn't...
I can't say it was 100% heartfelt, but I got the vibe they were going for that.
That was the intention, for sure, is to make a heartfelt track. The problem was, it still wasn't enough. It just wasn't. I didn't emotionally connect this. Truthfully, I connected more emotionally to Keeping It Real because you got that sense of almost frustration and aggravation.
Oh, yeah. That track, I was like, it must have appealed to my inner American frontiersman, perhaps.
But you get that sense of, like, he's, you get, the wound cuts deep. Like, this sense of frustration and aggravation in his voice and his singing. It felt more heartfelt.
But the frustration and the aggravation I feel was still coming from, because they weren't really shy about going full Western in that track, it made me feel like the frustration and isolation one might feel in the middle of the plains.
Yeah.
In a time hence. So, yeah, that made me feel something, for one. The inner frontiersman in my blood, even though I'm an urbanite through and through, whatever. So... That did something.
But
this did nothing. We're right back into department store territory. I wasn't feeling it.
There's just not a lot to say different about this than we haven't already said in previous tracks. Like, we're getting to a point where we're just repeating ourselves now.
Not necessarily. I mean...
Well, with this song, yeah. What's new in this song that they didn't do in...
They got a little bit more climactic at the bridge.
Oh, yeah. All right, I forgot about that. But I love that's the difference. Just that.
Just trying.
Yeah.
We're
digging.
At that bridge, it actually reminded me of just a smidgen of Led Zeppelin. Because they brought in a little bit of a guitar. Hey.
Okay, no,
right.
I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
They brought in a bit of a distortion at that point, and it sounded like something straight out of Stairway. Just before they cut out and right back into the verse.
But it's something like that.
Fleeting moment needed to be mentioned.
Yeah, but that's you know what that reminds me of? The saxophone in Robbie Williams' intro track. Like, it's something there that
which was the thing I pointed out. Yes.
So,
but no, it's not the same type of thing, because this did actually fit with the track in this case. The saxophone
true.
bit, I felt he's referring to the moments in which I tend to really be hard on in music, where sound bites are used to no end, you know, just as filler for people to just raise their eyebrow and go, "Ooh, that's new, that's interesting." But this is not that. This blended with the track.
It did.
But there's still too much of a uniformity and sameness to this track and to a great extent this album that I'm not using that as a major plus.
No, that's fair.
I'm just for descriptive purposes.
No, yeah. All right, you're right.
And
moving forward, trudging through, we get to Best Damn Friend.
This was
like a country pop track.
Once again, the music and the lyrics didn't really project what they were going for.
No.
There was supposed to be a connection between two people being made in this song. I didn't feel any connection. I felt passivity. I felt just going through the same thing over and over and over again.
This is the bombshell for this album.
It was the lowest point on the album.
And to a greater extent for the albums re-reviewed this year.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the... Well...
We
did do Trey this year.
I don't actively dislike... I don't actively hate this. I just don't care about this song at all.
Nothingness. Honestly, I'd rather get a visceral reaction of dislike than nothing.
I'd rather be pissed.
So I might be...
I was about to say the same thing.
I might agree that it could be one of the worst tracks, not because it's necessarily the worst song, but that it literally does nothing for me.
I wrote down, I had a stroke and didn't care. That was how inspired I was. It felt like it was trying to physically lower my blood pressure, lower my heart rate, and lull me to sleep. Not because it's, a nice dreamy experience, which is what we're getting to. This is because it is so...
No, lull you to death.
Yeah, there you go. Lull me to death.
You could sue them, Yeah, Barenaked Ladies, you're trying to kill me.
My heart skipped a beat because it was trying to stop. Oh, God, it was just so non-imagination.
Non-imaginative?
No, non-imagination. This is the anti-imagination.
Oh, you're...
It's the antithesis.
As a thing.
It is the antithesis of invention.
It's the antithesis.
Unimaginate?
That's what it said, antithesis.
You guys are in word spiral right now.
This is the opposite of invention. That's probably the best way for me to put it.
The opposite of invention is stagnation.
Thank you. That's exactly what it is. It's stagnation.
Exactly what he was looking for.
This is the word stagnation, in a nutshell. There's
a reason for it. Because ultimately, I am pretty much in the same position as you. I really had nothing to note about this track. Yeah. You know me, I really find something to say about everything.
Yeah, anyway.
I'm a pretty talkative guy.
Yeah. Sure.
Hey.
He waxes eloquence.
And his legs.
All right.
Neither here nor there.
Hey, I'm not a runner.
Anyway, you were saying.
Okay. Or a swimmer.
There is a reason.
Or model.
I believe it has to do with the figuration that they were just... It's not the same as the synth in the first track. It's more... I can't even describe it. There's very little to describe it. I just know that it was dry. That is the main
that's a good way to describe it, is that this track was so dry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree.
Occasionally, after or between the verses and the choruses, they would go back to that figuration, or at least the figuration that never really left. They would just drop out other instruments, and it would leave just that. And when it was just that, you might as well have had a few seconds of silence, because it was that uninspiring.
Did you ever lick sandpaper?
As a fact, no. No, I have not.
Okay. Lick sandpaper and then compare it to this track.
No, that would inspire a reaction in me.
Oh. No, don't get get actually fine sandpaper, like 300, 400 grit.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on either, listeners, so don't ask.
I think paper.
Do I ever know what's
better.
going on?
No.
I just think of things and they come out. Sometimes things come out that I didn't even think of yet.
So moving on to the next track.
I'm gonna shoot this guy.
Did I say that out loud?
And that is exactly what I was going for. This actually, once again, this was a rehash of Odds Are.
Except that it was even less. It was even more uninspired because it's a rehash of a song that didn't need to be rehashed.
It was a more modern version of the beat in Odds Are, more modern composition of Odds Are. It was
more
not
modern,
very good.
It was more modern, but it was less mature.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the interesting thing about this.
Yeah.
Once again, I like the idea they were going for. The whole inner monologue, hitting, the ears of the people that shouldn't be hearing it. Embarrassing yourself because you said something to a really hot girl and you said that thing that, that thing you think of, like, oh man, you're so beautiful. Wait, did I say that out loud? It's a great idea. A great idea.
Yeah,
they didn't do anything good enough.
Interspersed with lines like, put your hands up in the air, wave them like you care, and I'll be there. Kill me. Really? God damn it.
Ooh, you said the G word?
Shut up.
Sorry, I don't know. I got nothing. This is what this album's done to me. Like, I don't have.
And lest I forget, whoa, whoa. This is another thing. I'm sorry, but
we were cursing to the heavens at Fun. Period. Because of them. Other bands are doing things like this where they have... Look, I'm all for nonsensical cheering and chanting and song.
I'm not. How do you think I feel?
But I can get behind it if it's fun, not the band, the actual emotion. But in this case, it was just it was uninspired. That's all I keep saying about this record. And I said this earlier. We'll come back to this. For someone like Steve, who clearly didn't really favor the band before this, it's just what he expected, stuff he wouldn't like. For me, it's back to the Maroon 5 feels. I expect more and got none of it.
For me, I was expecting pop. I wasn't expecting this level.
Anyway, moving on to Daydreamin'.
Okay, first off, who actually did this song? Because it was not Barenaked Ladies.
It doesn't sound like them at all.
This was somebody else completely.
Apparently they had 2 guest spots on this. This track and one later on.
Yeah, but...
Too long. The song was like 5.5 minutes. There was no reason for it to be that long.
I will refute that. There is redeeming qualities.
Wait, it wasn't 5.5 minutes?
I was just thinking that.
There is redeeming qualities.
He's refuting how long it was.
It's not too long.
Of the universe of time, it was not 5 minutes.
No, it was not too long. Because if it was cut down, we wouldn't have got the second half, which was nice ambience.
That's true.
Most of it was kind of it had an air of ambience about
well,
it.
Also,
to some extent, it succeeded in the fact that this was sort of a daydream. It felt like a daydream.
Yes. The song is called Daydreamin', if I hadn't said that yet.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah.
Yes.
There's that.
Yes.
Problem with this...
The backbeat was way too heavy and loud. It drowned out the singing, so you could barely understand what he was saying.
The vocals were run through robots and came out as cheap and tinny instead of ethereal.
Honestly, this track would have been better with no lyrics, no vocals, and just had an ambient track.
And
I would have been more on board.
Move with it, and even when everything cut out and it went full ambient towards the end, it was still a little bit too heavy on the beat to fit the theme they had set up, and
it was still really repetitive.
It went nowhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it absolutely went nowhere.
I guess it feels like someone's daydream. I mean,
not mine.
That's the whole thing.
In my daydreams, I'm usually time traveling, so this is very relevant.
Do you see a time vortex?
There was also the
aspect. Tiny blue blocks bouncing around.
Thank you, Stephen. Stephen, you inspired
Wow, he called
you
Stephen.
Yeah, I know. You inspired me to talk about the lyrics.
This is when John gets emotional.
This is something I want to talk about. The lyrics. The lyrics were kind of thumbing your nose towards the person that kept you down growing up, said you would never amount to anything. Well, does not fit the music of this song. That theme, that vocal, that lyric does not fit the theme of this song.
That theme. That vocal. Sorry.
Yo, we laying down that track, yo.
I had to.
We mixing. We mixing.
This is why you do that. Yeah, it's fun on the other side.
It is fun, isn't it? Yeah, I'll get you back later.
Probably.
Bless you.
I hate you.
I know. It was so improperly paired.
Yeah.
It was off his head again. That disconnection between what they were singing and what it was paired with. It was so bad.
This is going to be an instance where I actually am going to defend John's use of the word proper. Because I don't. If it simply doesn't work, if there's a disparity there, maybe there's someone out there who's going to find that it works together, but no, not to me.
No one here in this room.
It wasn't ironic. It was, yeah, Dad, forget you. I'm going to be an astronaut. But I'm going to be an astronaut. Like, no.
Yeah,
no. It was multiple emotions trying to get through. None of them did.
Okay, moving on to Smile.
Oh, okay.
So this song... So, a little background. Barenaked Ladies had put out a couple of records that were geared just towards kids. They were kids' records, which, from what I've listened to, I've heard on Spotify, are fun and very much kid-centric records. This song should have been one of those records, not on an album for adults. I can't hate it because it's a fun track for kids, for young kids, to dance around to and enjoy and sing along.
Put a smile on, put a smile.
It was just...
Everybody come... That kind of level of happy-go-luckiness, yet still had a little bit of the adult theme work in the lyrics, talking about, let's look back on our lives and reflect.
And it's just...
And where did that come from?
It's confusing, and, I mean... I can't hate this track. I really can't.
Is it time for us to pull our Crash Chords, let's stretch and find a theme session?
No.
This is...
Because it could be trying to let adults find their childhood.
No.
Their inner
child.
No.
There's a...
No.
You guys aren't buying...
No.
Really?
No.
So this track is like... As I said, you could put this in a boombox and put it out in the field at camp while kids are running around, and it would fit. It would fit that environment. I would have no issue playing this to my children. I would definitely expose them to other things.
But first you'd be asking the question of how do I have children?
I would have
no.
I would have no problem if my kids were exposed to this. And I'm talking young kids, 2, 3, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds.
When did you guys have kids? I'm so confused.
No. Shush. I could see this actually making it to a Barney-esque level of children's programming. What are those?
They're this generation's version of
you don't
children
know the Wiggles?
entertainment. Yeah.
No, I stopped after Teletubbies.
Well, no, my nephew and niece watched the Wiggles.
That's when you stopped? That's when you decided to stop?
That's when I stopped keeping up on what PBS was producing for our children.
Fair.
Anyway. It's not... It's
Wiggles?
This song was fun, but I still cared very little about it. It just didn't reach me.
Moving
on to the final track. So apparently, for track 12, Crawl, they decided to sit this one out. And they asked Matchbox 20 to come in and sing a song.
And that's when I realized this album was actually created by Matchbox 20 in 1995, and it was only recently released.
Because
I looked it up. I found it on a conspiracy website.
So my problem here is, this song, Crawl, sounds like you could have swapped it with anything off of Mad Season by Matchbox 20. Problem is, that album came out 13 years ago, and not even Matchbox 20 does that anymore. They evolved past it, became more of a pop band, and have actually done things.
Before we go into the musical aspect of it, because it does have something going for it, but we're going to get to that.
That's only at the end.
We're going to get to that.
It's a little too late.
The lyrics, huge levels of imagery that were extremely weak. It was the most juvenile lyrics on the album, and that's even counting Smile. Their mixed metaphors were just terrible. Talking about how I could crawl because I was trying not to drown, or I could crawl so I could butterfly.
Yeah, that's a direct lyric.
I could butterfly.
I wish I could butterfly. Don't you wish you could butterfly?
What does that mean?
I don't mean to insult artistic choice, but I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
I don't get it.
Me either.
Butterfly.
It's
Butterfly.
just... Look,
butterflies fly. Caterpillars crawl.
Seriously. We've reviewed Matchbox 20 on here before.
I know what they do.
We did their newest record, and while Matchbox 20 is pop as well at this point, we at least all agreed that on their newest record, they tried new things, they did different stuff, they played around with themes. Like, it was interesting and engaging.
Yes.
This is not.
Matt's getting so Italian with his hand gestures right now.
I'm just so annoyed that a band would... Like, I'm on Steve's side for once. I understand why Steve would be bored with the 90s sound and thinks that in a lot of places it doesn't fit, but we have both agreed that when done right, even if it's still kind of nostalgic, it can work. Here it doesn't. They took an obsolete sound and replicated it exactly instead of doing something with it. At least with like All American Rejects when they harken back, or when E6 were like popping out of a time capsule, they still added a little something to it themselves, interesting lyrics, a fun rhythm, whatever. Like, there was something to engage you. There is absolutely nothing here. The lyrics stink. It's uninspired. It's boring, and it's way too long.
With one exception of keeping it real. The album as a whole is just a bunch of generic top 40 singles.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be in the top 40.
The thing is, you can find them in any other place. That, like... Why would you go to Barenaked Ladies for these tracks in the top 40?
That's what I'm saying.
I would go to... Well, if I were inclined in such a way to go to the top 40...
Because you wouldn't dream of doing such a thing,
I would go to One Direction. I would go to Perry. I would go to that. Because that would be the epitome of pop. And it would be from artists that are supposed to be doing that because that's what they want to do.
And to some
that's
extent,
what they're good at.
I'll say that as much as that may not be my taste, and I still find there's a lot of pop very formulaic... It is the voice of this generation. You would be hearing something current. You would be hearing something appropriate.
It would have themes of this generation.
Yes.
This does not. This has themes of 13 years ago.
This has themes of the 90s when since we
not
weren't
even 2000.
Well, we weren't so overexposed via the internet and social media to like weird, messed up things, which is what our music kind of reflects nowadays. If you look at the top 40. Here's my number, call me maybe. Come on, that's kind of weird thing. You should definitely talk to your mom before you do something like that. Anyway, this is like, oh no, everything is brighter. Let's look on that. The future will be great. This is before the Y2K idea.
John just inspired something to me, and we have to come back to that. The reference you just made to pop music and the inappropriate themes, I want to get back to that. But
these are the old school 1990s wholesome themes done in pop. 15 years late.
Wholesome themes. This is interesting. Just to bring up a little bit of pop. Yeah, just a pop point. Everybody knows the Gautier song.
Yeah.
Big hit single.
Somebody I Used to Know.
Somebody I Used to Know.
Which we reviewed.
It's become a little bit of a pop culture joke that song has been covered so many times and just has seemed to infect the world. At the same time, that track is really more of an alternative sound.
Yeah.
It's an alternative sound that was stated in such a way that was so catchy, it infected the pop world.
Yeah.
Contagiously.
Yeah.
Now, because this can be such a running joke and people like to make fun of that, be like, oh, hey, look at Mr. Edgy over here, he's listening to Somebody I Used to Know, and by Gautier. I completely reject that whole entire idea. I think to some extent that was a landmark point in modern history of music, in terms of what we generally respect and would put in our top 40 these days. It's not true in every instance, and it hasn't happened completely, but it's the first time that it happened, where someone accepted the alt sound as being an almost generally popular, acceptable thing. I think that was very important.
Instead of having a separate Billboard chart for alternative rock, we had it on the standard
and also,
generic charts.
That Gautier song birthed something that we covered on the podcast by Walk Off the Earth,
so my
which
point
was interesting as well.
Of course. My point with that essentially is that is the sound of this generation. If you're going to do something... I don't even think that's like pushing the boundaries to the extreme, of course. I wouldn't call that experimental, but it is such a far cry from what's going on here. as you said, this is the voice of the 90s.
Yeah.
It's just wholesome themes.
And,
there's not really anything wholesome going on.
We're gonna revisit that idea in a couple of minutes, but just to do our wrap up.
Well, I'm not even done with this song yet.
Oh, you're not even okay.
So we get to the end of Crawl, and the last minute is this kind of beautiful, visceral ambient sound, almost mind-bendy. It was one of those things where I just didn't see coming. And honestly, if you played the last minute of this song and said, "Hey, who is this?" Barenaked Ladies would be the last thing you would possibly guess.
I would not even guess the right genre. To be honest. I wouldn't even be close.
Ambient. This outro was gorgeous through and through. I was enthralled with it.
But had no place on the record. None. Because it's not even a good close to this record.
It's really such a shame, and that really, I kind of use that as my jumping off point for what I will be picking next week, because the ambient genre is something we haven't really touched yet.
We've talked about it a lot,
It's used in a lot of soundtracks because, let's face it, it is the essence of atmosphere.
Yeah.
Creating atmosphere. Just tones. Pure tones. Not cluttering it up with rhythm or lyrics or theme. No, just pure atmosphere. That's what we interpret as music. And this was the purity of that. It really was. Yeah. I thought it was gorgeous. I don't know if it was done by Barenaked Ladies themselves.
It was done by them. I don't know how, but it was.
My question is whether it was them or whether it was the producer. It sounds like it could almost be a producer's touch.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
As some effort to provide framework for this album, but there's no framework to provide.
No, there isn't.
This doesn't aid that.
It's
nice, but there's no ambient sound.
Nice fella,
and just to
we did have one in the beginning. Where was the other ambient sound in this track?
That was at the end.
Which?
No, that was the end of Daydreaming.
Oh yeah, Daydreaming. At the end of Daydreaming.
I thought there was one earlier than that.
My big thing is also, just to correct you a little bit, we have dabbled a little bit in ambient, not a lot, but we've covered some instrumental stuff. There was stuff on the Halo soundtrack that was very ambient, set a scene.
There was an ambient album.
There was instrumental work on that.
Ambient is one of those words that has a very, very fine line, because technically if something just has, you could call Daydreaming an ambient track almost, just because if it has a fluidity to it, and a ubiquitous nature, then it's technically ambient, but...
Yeah, and that one track on the, what was Trapped in Autumn was very, very much a beautifully ambient
but
track.
I'm specifically talking about erasing the percussive nature.
No, I understand.
That is really true.
No, of course. I understand. I'm just saying we've kind of dabbled in an ambient feel. We haven't actually gotten into ambient music specifically.
I'm about to say hardcore ambient.
I know, and I realized how that would make any sense.
Real hardcore,
real bitchin' ambient.
Like humpback whale. Oh my god, permeating.
They sell that stuff.
Yes,
I find it in Barnes and Noble.
Well,
I actually used to listen to it, but it made me pee.
All right.
And I'm just gonna move on.
Wrapping this up. Can I go first?
You want to?
I want to go first.
Right. Sure.
Alright, nothing in here. I didn't hate anything. I disliked a lot, but I didn't hate anything. One good song that I'm going to keep, the rest have already been deleted from my iPod. That's the best way I could put it. That's the most appropriate way. There was mediocrity throughout this album. There was nothing that shone out, with the exception of Keeping It Real. And I mean on every front. There was nothing that shone out. I didn't hate anything. It was very easy to listen to, and that's probably what this album defines. Easy listening. Easy listening pop. This is great backdrop music.
That's nail on the head, I'd say.
Well, here's the thing. What reason would they have to possibly break the format, if that's the format that got them popular? I'm just offering that as
the whole
some food
thing.
for
It's
thought.
different. It's different. This is what they evolved to. This is not what they started at.
Yeah, the early records.
What did they start at?
Alt rock.
Describe it.
Alt rock pop. It was alternative.
And some of it was even folky. If I had $1 million, it's a folk song.
I'd say a lot more folk than alt. I can't say the word alt for these guys, even in the 90s. In the 90s, alt meant a very, very different thing, and it was not this.
Yeah, true.
They were a folk band. They were folky rock, yeah. Folky rock band.
Folk rock, folk pop. That's what they were. But I saw them evolving towards pop. I would have expected something like this. I would have expected more from it. 2.25, 2.25. I cannot give it a 2.5. it's not quite too level. Honestly, it's a Leave It album.
That's fair. This takes me back in the realm of Maroon 5. Maroon 5 was a band I really liked a lot. I loved their first record. And then, as the records went on, I enjoyed them, but, they got progressively more kind of meh. And then I was horribly disappointed by Overexposed, which is why I probably rated it so high, because I took some personal taste into it. This record's no different than that, or the Green Day records. Barenaked Ladies are a band I've been listening to since high school that I really like. And this record was just disappointing. It was just completely disappointing. To not feel anything to the Barenaked Ladies, they always engaged something in me, even if it was just humor or joy. There was always something that came out of it. But most of the tracks on this record, I just didn't feel anything. Even the ones where I knew I got a solid sense of what the emotion should be, I didn't feel it. Like the love songs that were barely worth loving.
They're really like songs.
It's and I really like you song.
Yeah, there we go.
But I just, I liked a couple tracks, but I'm with John. This is I'm going to delete it off my iPod record, and I haven't done that with one of the records we've reviewed in a while.
Did you give your rating, John?
2.25.
2.25. Okay.
So I'll give the overall wrap up of Forget, Listen, Buy in a bit after Steve, but my rating is, I thought it was going to lean toward average. The first time I heard it, I thought it was going to be a 3, but it's not. It's just not. The second time through, I liked most of the record a lot less. So I wanted to even give it a 2.5, but the more that we talked about it, I had so little to say. It's just, this is a 2. I can't even recommend this to people who like Barenaked Ladies. And it's a bummer, because I'm seeing them at the end of the month. I mean, they'll still play the old stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm seeing them, Ben Folds 5, and Guster. They're all playing together.
You're going to get these tracks, too.
Right, because it's the newest record. I mean, they're still going to be performing live, and they're a fun band live, and I'm going to hear all the old songs that I like. And they're playing with Ben Folds and Guster, 2 bands that I really enjoy, but...
Just don't take out your lighter asking for an encore. There you go.
Because, I think Ben Folds is the headliner, thankfully. But, it's a 2. I wanted to give it more. I was telling Steve I was going to give it more, but the more we talked about it, and I had so little to say, it's a 2.
I'm not going to waste anybody's time. This is redundant hour, I feel. It's a redundant theme. It's redundant music. It's redundant lyrics.
It's redundant redundancies.
He's kind of doing what Macklemore did with Gold and just repeating it enough to devalue the word.
Redundant.
Yeah.
It is a little bit devalued at this point. I mean, you were about to use the word debased.
Yeah.
It didn't really fit, but it was a little harsh.
I feel debased.
Yeah.
That's
fair. A little bit.
No, I really don't have a closing statement for this. This is 2. I agree.
Yeah.
This is... it's exactly what both of you guys have said. I've tried to pick... this is not worth... Oh, that sounds really mean. Not worth my picking apart musically, but I'm just saying... You get a sense for these things after a while.
Yeah.
There's so much out there, an abundant amount of material of this ilk, that I feel like you'd have to be under a rock not to notice it.
Yeah.
Offering something new in that same vein at this point in the game is just... Didn't you say, John, that that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again?
And expecting the different
different results.
Yeah.
And of course,
did I ever tell you
you're not going to get different results here. You're going to get the same results, which is that Barenaked Ladies aren't going to lose any of their fan base.
Probably not.
Probably
They
not.
lost
Well, I don't know. No, they didn't lose me. I still like them. I just don't like this record. I'd still give the next one a try, but...
I don't mean to sit here and be belligerent. Obviously, anyone can continue creating... I can't... It's as if I'm, sanctioning that. Anyone could go out there and just create whatever they want. And if that's your style, by all means, go for it.
This record was...
It's all about its place in the present day, in culture, as trends as we see it. So I can't even go as far to say, like, I was about to say pop geniuses. I can't even say that anymore. It simply doesn't offer enough.
It's the epitome of safety. It'll probably not get panned by anybody. My overall rating is this: skip it, listen to it, buy it, skip it.
Yeah.
There's no reason to listen to this record. None. Yeah. Even as a Barenaked Ladies fan, I wouldn't recommend it. So skip it.
Yep.
I want to get back to something John had brought up before when we were talking about Carly Rae Jepsen and Call Me Maybe, and you were saying it's not appropriate and you wouldn't let your 13-year-old daughter go out and give her number to a complete stranger. Why is that not a problem? Why is it that we, as a culture, have to harp on violence in music, on suggestive themes, on these things that are inappropriate? Yet, a song called "Call Me Maybe," where it's literally about a young girl giving her number to a complete stranger because he's cute, knowing nothing about them, like, how is that not an issue for anybody?
It's kind of, I don't know what it says to our society, that it seems like our music that is considered the pop music...
Oh, this is going to be old man hour.
Yeah, a little bit. Our pop music has become more provocative. That much is pretty obvious.
Yes, of course.
With what we're doing. We're not even going to look at pop from a music or lyrical standpoint at this point. We're looking at the themes. 10, 15 years ago was a very different theme work in pop. And it's kind of weird. And why did we evolve this way?
And my biggest thing is, and like I want to, there are times where I really want to defend pop, and there are a lot of pop bands that I do like, but it's just one of those things where everyone was so on board with "Call Me Maybe." When you actually listen to what it's about, it's like, so this is okay. Songs that are with intelligent listeners you can value that is not as ridiculous as this, but this is okay. And it's like parents hone in on what looks bad, not necessarily what is bad.
Well, excuse me. It kind of banks off of that whole idea that children are always wanting to be a little bit more grown up, a little bit more like their older sisters, their older brothers, doing what they do, being with the cool kids, and that kind of thing. I think Call Me Maybe kind of plays off that a little bit. It's not that it's right per se, but
I guess.
I understand it.
We'll stop talking about the specific song, but in general, I mean, we could go back as far as poster child for this, Britney Spears. I guess started this theme with her popularity and everybody around the Britney Spears era of "You Drive Me Crazy," huge sexual explicit themes in stuff meant for 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds. Now,
but it goes back even further than that.
It wasn't quite as explicit before the mid-90s.
But you can go back further than that, to the 80s. Madonna was very explicit. Not in her earliest days.
Yeah, something that tends to get overlooked a little bit. Madonna was probably the breakthrough artist in terms of being so blunt about certain things. Everything, even her contemporaries and everything before that, tended to be clouded or shrouded in
oblique.
Metaphor and sweet. The sweeter moments, I guess, of courting.
Yeah.
And I do use the word courting because that seems to be what it was then. And then all of a sudden you're just, nope, let's cut to the nitty-gritty.
But Madonna was also an artist who, when she was getting panned for when she put out Erotica and some other stuff, she called a press conference just to walk up, say, "So what?" and then walked out. Like, it's clear that this artist had the cojones to do whatever the hell she wanted. But people didn't draw as much attention to it then. And then, even in the early 90s, when these... Christina Aguilera.
Hit me one more time.
No. I'm a genie in a bottle. You have to rub me the right way.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Or...
Come on, son.
Or
come on, son.
To a greater extent, Soulja Boy. Donk. She got donk.
It's like, I don't...
Well,
and yet...
Rap and hip-hop get a lot of flack for the same exact
heavy metal
stuff.
as well.
They get flack because, if you look at it objectively, there's a wider variety of tracks within those genres that have the same level of graphic.
Yeah, but then look at a band like Marilyn Manson. As a band, a lot of their songs are not overtly violent, but because of the imagery in his video and how the lead singer of Marilyn Manson would dress, that they assumed it was terrible.
That's why I find him a fascinating figure, just because he really walks that line. People see the image and they take all the associations that go with that image.
Yet, my hump, my lovely lady lumps is okay to
throw Fergie. On. That Fergie can put that out and it's fine.
You can put that on iCarly. It's okay.
It's very interesting this should come after today's album, because this album was very...
safe.
Very safe.
It was very safe.
Yeah.
Safe isn't even the word. It was...
Bland.
It was...
Bland love.
It was vanilla.
Bland.
It was vanilla.
Alright, I'll go with that too.
This is Rocky Road. This is mixing.
No, Rocky Road would be dangerous.
It's just... I don't know. Like... I want to defend pop music, and then I hear albums like this or stuff
it's
like...
It's probably my biggest gripe with pop in this day and age, is that...
I'm just wondering to see what you guys are trying to get out of this. I mean...
Well, no, we're just discussing it. We're not trying to get anything. We're just discussing.
The only point I was bringing up is that I feel like...
I'm just curious.
I feel like the parents of this generation, or even earlier generations, they harp on things that aren't necessarily... bad.
Fake beating each other up.
It's just...
Pokemon.
If you put a sweet spin on something, they'll ignore imageries because it's got a sweet spin, or it's a pretty young, innocent looking girl singing the song. Whereas there are songs that are not aggressive at all, but have an aggressive lead singer or an aggressive band in it, they jump all over.
There is a reason for that, though, of course. If you're talking about the reaction that children are going to have, children are not always capable of reading into metaphor. Very rarely are they capable of reading into metaphor, so they will take the image for the image.
Yeah.
And they'll discover that stuff, the other stuff, later. So sometimes I can almost justify that just because... it's important to teach kids about, don't judge a book by its cover, though.
Yeah.
That too. It's just that,
But back then, back in the 80s and 90s, the personas that were around these artists were considered scandalous. When Britney Spears was wearing a tank top that showed her belly with her button ring, whatever thing.
Her belly ring.
Thank you. That was scandalous. Nowadays, if, Miley Cyrus has a wardrobe malfunction and everything's out in the open, that's like, oh, it's okay. That no, she's a pop star. She gets away with it. It's a little ridiculous. Because a kid doesn't just latch onto the music. That's the big thing.
Yeah, we're going down a different road here, because then this almost brings up that whole Barbie doll thing. The fact that that's clearly what we're teaching girls is the standard.
And that's ridiculous.
And that goes back to the 50s.
Yeah.
So
can we even?
That's another thing. Barbies are not the most popular girl's doll anymore.
Yeah.
What is?
Bratz. Bratz replaced Barbie.
And you got to remember something about Bratz that's different about Barbie. Barbie always had, even though they made some faux pas, a wholesome element. She was an Olympian.
In terms of, or fashion and all that other stuff.
Bratz gives off a different motif, a different idea.
I know nothing about this, so you'll have to describe.
It's in the name. Just think that Bratz.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's a little more, does my handbag match my cell phone and go with the collar to my doggy?
Oh.
The projection that it creates is the same sort of thing that the projection
we're getting
of this
sidetracked.
music. No, I'm saying it's the same sort of projection we're getting with our music, same sort of projection that we're getting with the musicians. It's not quite right.
Okay, here's my point that I'm trying to make. While certain pop stars who have suggestive themes are free to do as they please, back in the 80s, when the parental advisory thing first started, it started in the big people speaking against it, even though eventually they ended up putting it out anyway, was like Dee Snider of Twisted Sister and some of those bands. People wanted to shut down and limit Dee Snider because it was a bunch of grown men dressed in makeup who looked very intimidating. But look at the songs they wrote. We're not going to take it. It's about standing up for yourself. And yet they wanted to silence and limit that. Like, why? The content was there, and they weren't that... Like, it was just...
Why was that? Why did they want to silence that?
I think that there was some inappropriate language in the song, maybe. Which, I mean, in the end, yes, the parental advisory sticker on albums, I believe, is a necessity.
Again, people put emphasis on image.
Image.
So there was a parental advisory.
Yeah, that was the trial that ended up starting that.
But to be honest, parental advisory is pretty much ignored nowadays.
Well, that's the thing. This is why this is a very interesting conversation, because we're talking about the line, all the grays of censorship, because you don't want to go too far, because you don't want to start censoring things in general.
Yes,
at the same time,
definitely a detriment to our society.
It's pretty easy these days to censor television. I mean, at least then you can have a box in your house that does it for you. But censoring music is a really, really tricky thing. On one hand, chiefly because of the internet. The internet, that is the one hole in all of that. And I'm still not saying that there should be any censorship in the internet. It's just the fact that kids are going to start using the computer pretty early these days, even earlier than we did. And they're going to find it.
Well, my biggest problem with that
Otherwise, family. Often it's or peers. They're going to find it through them.
And you're bringing it to the point that I was trying to make, is the biggest problem with censorship is you shouldn't be censoring the artist. They're an artist. You should be a better parent and manage what your kids consume. If you're worried about them hearing things they're not supposed to, manage what they do.
Clearly. So
that's the point. My sister-in-law and my brother take great care with their kids. You know, they kept them from violent images or things they shouldn't hear because they're parents and they're managing what they should do until they're old enough to do it themselves. That's parenting, not blaming someone else for putting it out in the first place. You can't blame Rockstar, the creators of Grand Theft Auto, for creating a game where you could beat a hooker to death so you can get your money back. That's not their fault.
I had misinterpreted because when this conversation began, it seemed more like the fault was partially on the artists, such as I don't know, it seemed like there was some Britney Spears animosity.
No, I was trying to say more that it's censorship should fall on the
It started with us just saying that pop has gotten dirtier over the last 20 years. Yeah. That's how we started it.
I'm a simpleton with these things. I'm not even really looking at the...
We're rambling at this point.
No, I'm not even looking at the... Often is the case, I'm not looking at content, I suppose, as much as I am musical content.
Right.
I mean, not theme work content. Inherently, I think you can sing about whatever you want to sing about. It's part of
it goes back
the whole idea of music.
It goes back to the parents getting mad at Eminem for having such lewd lyrics. That's not Eminem's problem. That's your problem. Be a parent. Don't give it to your kid. Yeah. Don't let your kid get it. But the hardest part is, of course, you can't manage society, and he could find it, like you were saying, on the internet, from his peers. But that's still not the artist's fault. They're creating.
Of course.
And that's what drives me nuts, is that people in government, in society, they want to punish the creators, not the people who should be managing the consumption of content.
So the issue here is the screen. How much do we let in on the family scale?
But that's up to the family. That should be up to the artist. Why should
you have any opinions on that? On how much should be let into the on the family scale? If speaking as
if I were a parent,
as if you were a parent.
Well, I mean,
prospective parent.
Well, first of all, as a parent, the parents who buy games with their kids without sitting and watching them play them from time to time, who let them watch TV without sitting and watching with them, who lets them listen to music without listening with them, I feel that if my child wants to hear something, I should sit down with them so I know what they're listening to. Not just assume, it's a thing, here, go buy it, here's $20, see you later.
Besides, they go to bed, earlier than you are, so, you know what, you can spend some time listening to them, and then go do whichever you're going to do. Alright?
It's just, you should be... A proper response is managing the content and knowing what your child likes.
Yeah.
There were so many times
that's something that a lot of people have said, and that's a great way to do it. Parents don't do that. It's actually kind of hard to do something like that nowadays because of the amount of work parents have to do in order to support families.
We have younger parents these days, and parents who themselves were perhaps children in the 90s.
Yeah.
If you were children in the 90s, then all this stuff had kind of begun already. As you said, if Madonna was
there's already desensitization from a generation deep.
Exactly. So if there's that's the problem, I think. That's one reason why there was a bit of a disparity from one person to another back then, and now it's becoming almost it's flooded with desensitization, flooded with hey, let it all in.
But
kid's gonna listen what the kid's gonna listen to.
But as we're saying, a parent can't be Big Brother.
They can't monitor everything. It's hard.
Can't do, how do you help the parents out? Like, do you put age content levels on YouTube? Not just 18 or over, but 13-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds.
Well, I mean,
put some sort of filter like that on it.
But there are filters.
Yeah.
In certain places.
But really, so much stuff is going to slip through the cracks that it actually becomes a responsibility of those who actually make the content available.
I guess.
Which is, you know what? Maybe they should do something like that. Even as creators, set groundworks on not just under or over adult level. Actually have things that are, this is for the 10-year-olds. This is for the 15-year-olds. This is for the 20-year-olds. Maybe there should be a further content.
Very difficult.
It would be very difficult. It really
Especially
would.
Since on the internet it's as easy as lying about when you were born, and then you can access the content you wanted to.
Well, considering a computer-savvy age of what the next generation is going to be like, parents should probably...
4? Yeah,
but parents should probably learn a little bit more.
At Steampunk World's Fair, when the Wasties were performing, there was a mother with her child, and the child had a Galaxy in his hand, and was watching stuff on YouTube. Nothing inappropriate. The kid knew what he wanted, but he was controlling the phone like any adult. And he was like 2. And he was flipping through screens, he was playing, watching, stopping, hitting the recent things. Like, he was navigating it like he'd been using the technology for 10 years, and he was 2.
He was probably using it his whole life.
And it's scary. Because, I know when all of us were that young, we had a speak and spell.
Popped out of the womb. Here you go, your first Galaxy.
And I'm also not saying that there's anything wrong with that. Teaching a child very early how to use the technology. However, it's scary what they'll be able to get into by the time they're 6 if they know how to use the technology at 2.
There's a nice little thing that I saw. It is a new parental safety control app. It's something that once installed, the only way to actually take it off, I think it's from other places. So you control it from your phone onto their iPad. And it actually limits how much time can be used to surf on the internet, how much time
that's interesting. I like that
can be used to play games. It actually sets the amount of time that
sort of
apps
like
can be opened.
You're teaching time management by
No, it's not just time management. It prevents children from spending all day surfing on the internet because they have 2 cumulative hours, or whatever you set,
to do
over a 24-hour period to be on the internet.
You can do the same thing with the Xbox.
Which
you can set parental controls that limit the amount of time they can use.
So that way, at some point, they can be reminded, there's an outdoors.
And it's mommy's phone that controls
it. Beyond the monkey bars.
I loved it. It was a little commercial I saw. I wish I knew the name of it because I'd actually plug it. It's a great idea. But it's a nice little thing. And that's something I want more of. Because this is making making the parents' job easier to be parents. It's letting adults get better influences on the next generation of what the world's going to be. I like it.
Well, we may not necessarily have to worry about that, because there's also one other thing here. The more and more Apple moves in here, kind of consolidating everything. Because when you think about it, the tech generation of the 80s and 90s, which we really referred to as the nerds, the tech-savvy people who were acquiring information on how to hack things. And
they
do
were
all this
PCs.
Other stuff. Yeah, they were PCs. They knew how to do stuff and make a career out of it. We're just talking about using the internet right now. And Apple sometimes has a way of making everything so user-friendly that it's just about consuming media. It may not be about becoming... creating or exploring, figuring out different ways to utilize the internet necessarily. It may just be about consume, and that's going to be the tech-savvy kids that we're referring to right now.
Well, I also think that in the generations to come, we're so... The reason I think that so many people, like we hear in the news all the time that people are having these kind of breakdowns and like kind of losing it, especially performers and young kids. It's kind of stuff like the Justin Bieber thing where he had a breakdown recently, I think, or something. Or if he hasn't, he's gonna.
Oh, no, he's never going back to like Canada or England or something.
But whatever.
Like that
the point I'm trying to make is, I think it's because...
And there was much rejoicing.
The human brain is only at capacity to process so much at once. And we used to have, before computers were so prevalent everywhere, that you could come home and decompress.
And have a conversation with your wife about what was in the news today. And did you hear about that? Yeah, that's a shame.
There's just no...
That's very necessary.
And there's just... We're constantly consuming things. Constantly absorbing information or content.
Not discussing it enough.
Actually, I just put my fingers in my ears and go la 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 after a while. I actually do that. I ignore news.
I do that, of course. You have to have an unplugging.
You have to be able to step away.
Yeah.
Unplug, but then discussion is important. I usually use that to discuss about what you've experienced.
Well, I like...
Talk with other people, exchange opinions. That's really what's important. The exchanging of ideas and opinions.
Absolutely.
And
I got a weekly thing with my dad. Me and him, like, we sit around the fire, because we have a chimney and we burn wood. One of the trees that fell in our houses. Yeah. Long story. We sit around and we just talk news. We talk about, hey, did you hear about what's going on in Iran? Yeah. Did you hear about the trial? Yeah. Did you hear about the law? Yeah. Because, you know what? My dad taught me from a young age, be aware of what's going on. My dad and my mom. Be aware of the news. And it's something. And it's a real relaxing thing for me.
I just don't know that that's always going to be the case as we move forward. Although we're kind of getting tangential now.
My brother, okay, great example. My brother is the be-all, end-all video gamer kid.
Joey?
This kid... No. For the longest time, and I gotta give credit to him, for the longest time, I thought he was just stupid about current events. I really did. I love you, brother. I really do. Over the last year and a half, 2 years, and it started when he was about 18, he finally started getting up to date on current events. I mean, he was a late bloomer compared to me and our middle brother, but he started coming up to date on middle event. And if he went from like, oh, did you hear about the new video game? Oh, yeah, I just scored a quintuple uber kill in such and such. To, hey, did you hear about what they were doing with the nukes in Iran? Or something like that. There's hope. I didn't push it on him. He just started doing it. There's hope.
Well, it usually happens at some age. Everyone starts realizing, again, because of the internet. Because of the internet, you're exploring one site and you're going to find a link to another, and then it's like, oh, that is interesting.
Oh, don't even get me started on the Wikipedia rabbit hole. Wait, don't.
Well, everything eventually becomes philosophy.
Now, that's something that I don't think even... Going back to your idea, the idea you read about, John, that should be applied to us. Just, no, only 2 hours on Wiki. That's it. You cannot exceed 2 hours. It should be applied to everyone on Earth.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Time management should be a class in elementary school. It really should.
It really should. No, that's definitely key.
Yeah. But I'm afraid, he was 18 when he did it. I started doing that sort of stuff when I was 13. What if this next group starts doing it when they're 27? That's not a good age to be waking up and doing that sort of stuff.
Long before that, because you've also established a personality long before then.
And you're already working, hopefully, with an actual job in the world.
I'm inclined to say if it's going to be 27, it's not going to be until ever. There's some studies out there that claim at about 2022, you are the person you will be for the rest of your life, essentially. You can change things, some fundamental things about yourself, but personality-wise, interest-wise especially, you're kind of in a box at that point. I don't mean to pull away from the thing that we like to tell our kids these days. You can be whatever you want, but I'm sorry, when you're 22, you're not a kid. Pick something for the love of God. Yeah.
And on that note, we might as well start moving into our
wrap-up. Steve, what is our spam? Because I need something to make me laugh.
Our spam today is f***ing by Affliction UK.
What? Really?
That's all they sent?
Yes.
Did you click on the link?
There's no link.
Oh, there's no link?
Oh, well, there might have been an email address.
Did it even have a period at the end?
Yes, there was a period. Actually.
Then it's a sentence.
All right, yeah.
No, it's
a sentence fragment. Actually.
No, the subject is implied.
But there's no... Well, there's a subject and an action all rolled in the one.
Yeah, it's a sentence. It's a grammatically correct sentence.
Anyway, okay. I didn't laugh.
No.
Way to fail.
What's our album for next week, Steve? What's your pick?
Okay. My pick... Well, I'm going to go into something a little bit different because we talked about ambient music.
And Steve likes to be different.
Well, I like to explore all the genres that we have.
You're a beautiful moth. You're a beautiful moth.
I am, actually. Yeah. Metaphorically speaking. Boards of Canada. we're gonna go and try out some Boards of Canada. They've been around since 1986.
They've been around the block a few times.
Yes,
yeah.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
In John's best and terrible Canadian accent.
I do a pretty darn good Canadian. Alright? I don't feel like you're really respecting me as an individual.
Yes, but I think it's more of a Minnesotan, really.
No, that's more of a Minnesota.
This
is more of
North Dakota.
I'm gonna say more of a Toronto.
Toronto. You sound
Toronto?
No, you're Western Canada right now.
I'm going full Western.
Full Western.
Anyway, what's the album called?
The album is called Tomorrow's Harvest.
When did it come out?
Do they even grow things up there?
Oh, they just
brand
came
new.
out? Brand new? Okay.
Yep.
What was the album again?
Tomorrow's Harvest.
Tomorrow's Harvest. Okay.
By Boards of Canada. Like I said, they've been around since 1986. They
are they actually
done
Canadian?
Various soundtracks here and there for episodes of things, for little online things here and there. I believe they might have done a film, although I'm not 100% sure on that. We'll talk about them next week.
Are they actually Canadian?
That is a very good question.
I want to know.
I don't know that.
Look that up for next week.
I should know that.
You should.
Yeah.
Fact.
It's all right.
Canada has actually produced some very good individuals.
Individuals. Okay.
Yeah, they brought us Nathan Fillion.
There you go.
I would have said bands in general. There's
Well, I
some
said
pretty good Canadian
individuals.
bands out there.
People. They brought some good people.
Okay, well, bands
We
are,
import
bands are
some
made
good
of
ones.
people.
Should I not bring up that the Barenaked Ladies are Canadian?
They are?
Are they
I'm pretty
really?
sure. I think so. I could be speaking completely out of my rear end.
That's okay.
Doesn't
Wouldn't be the first time.
hurt Canada, really. I guess.
I mean, Canada hasn't given us someone like Antonio Banderas. But they bring us some good crops once in a while.
They bring us interesting Americans.
They do. It's true. They do.
And on that bombshell,
We'll wrap up. Remember, everybody, music is life, and life is good.